It was the morning of June 3rd, and the sky over Grand Teton National Park was unusually clear, with golden sunlight painting the jagged peaks. Logan Fisher, a 22-year-old environmental sciences major from Colorado, zipped up his lightweight hiking pack and set off from the trailhead near Death Canyon Shelf. He was fit, experienced in solo treks, and obsessed with documenting untouched terrain for his student research project, but this trip was different. He hadn't told his professors. He barely said goodbye to his friends. One roommate recalled Logan saying, "I need to go somewhere no one's ever gone. Just for a little while." By afternoon, Logan had sent a single GPS ping through his satellite beacon, marking his location roughly 4 miles off trail. That was the last digital trace of him. What's strange is he didn't mark his usual campsite, nor any nearby lake, which he normally used for water sources. Park rangers later reviewed the ping and found it near a steep, crumbling cliff face deep in Whistler's Cut, a narrow ravine surrounded by sharp ridges and home to notoriously aggressive golden eagles. That area wasn't on any trail maps, and most hikers actively avoid it due to frequent rock slides and unstable ground. No rational reason existed for Logan to go there, unless he was following something. The day after Logan's departure, a sudden alpine storm swept across the Tetons. For nearly 36 hours, the area was slammed with rain, hail, and freezing wind, cutting off communication and flooding several lower trails. By the time search teams realized Logan hadn't returned, 5 days had already passed, and conditions made any ground rescue nearly impossible. Helicopters were deployed, infrared drones scanned the area, and every known hiking route was searched. But Logan was simply gone. No dropped water bottle, no gear, no footprints, as if the forest had swallowed him whole. Family members arrived within days, pleading for answers, while internet sleuths quickly turned the case viral. "He's too smart to get lost," one Reddit user posted, attaching clips from Logan's older hiking videos that showed him navigating glacial streams and dense woods with ease. But what truly puzzled authorities was that his emergency beacon was never activated, and Logan knew how to use it. He'd been trained in survival. If he was in trouble, he should have sent a distress call. The silence was deafening, but one ranger, Caleb Morris, quietly admitted something off the record. "It felt wrong out there, like something was watching." Whispers of the park's darker folklore began to resurface, stories of vanishing hikers, shadow figures seen at dusk, and the myth of a mountain warden who punishes those who step off the path. The official narrative remained a simple missing person case, but among the locals, and especially those who knew Logan, no one believed this was just a case of someone getting lost. The official search for Logan began on June 10th, 7 days after his disappearance. By then, the storm had passed, but it had left behind a battered, waterlogged landscape. Trails were washed out, slopes were coated in mud, and dense fog clung to the higher altitudes, swallowing sound and sight. Search teams, including seasoned park rangers, volunteers, and canine units, fanned out across the western side of Grand Teton. Their base was established at Jenny Lake, and helicopters swept overhead every morning, scanning with infrared and high-res imaging. But day after day, they turned up nothing, not even broken branches or a boot print. After a week of searching, the team began to focus on Logan's last known coordinates near Whistler's Cut, the dangerously narrow ravine. Only a handful of rangers had ever navigated that terrain. When they reached the ledge near the ping location, they found the area choked with debris, fallen rocks, torn branches, and several large eagle nests perched in the cliffs above. The area was eerily quiet. One ranger reported hearing a strange, high-pitched screech echoing from the stone walls, but no animals were seen. Oddly, one of the larger nests had feathers scattered in a spiral pattern, something the wildlife biologist on site couldn't explain. Search dogs brought to the location became visibly disturbed. One refused to go past a certain point, growling at nothing. Another sat down and whined, ears pinned back, refusing to approach the cliff's edge. Rangers were puzzled. These dogs had worked dozens of cases before, some in far more treacherous terrain. Yet here, they froze. They smelled something they didn't like, one handler later recalled, though he admitted he couldn't say what. The team pressed further, climbing down the ravine, but still found no trace of Logan, not even a torn piece of fabric or a dropped energy bar wrapper. It was as though he'd vanished mid-step. Weeks passed, and pressure mounted. News outlets picked up the story. Interviews aired with Logan's family, and hashtags like #FindLoganFisher and hashtag Lost in the Tetons started trending. But as the news cycle moved on, so did public interest. The official search was scaled back by mid-July, though a few rangers, including Caleb Morris, the one who had explored Whistler's Cut, continued to revisit the site on their own. Caleb in particular couldn't be late summer. Logan's disappearance had started fading from headlines, but within Grand Teton, strange reports began surfacing from backcountry hikers and locals alike. A couple from Utah claimed they were camping near Phelps Lake when they heard soft whistling around their tent at 2 a.m., rhythmic, almost musical, but echoing unnaturally across the canyon. When the husband peeked outside, he saw nothing, but the next morning, they found a piece of orange nylon tangled high in a tree, 20 feet up, the same shade as Logan's jacket. Rangers later visited the area but were unable to recover the material. A strong wind had torn it away. Or something had. A group of college students hiking near Avalanche Canyon reported seeing a man standing completely still, deep in the trees, watching them. He wore a hood, was partially obscured by branches, and never responded to their calls. When two of them tried to approach, the figure silently stepped backward into the shadows and vanished. The students chalked it up to paranoia, until they reviewed photos from the hike and spotted something deeply unsettling. In one image, behind a tree, was a hand gripping the trunk, but with fingers far too long. The image went viral for a day, then mysteriously disappeared from their account. Even more chilling were reports from seasoned hikers and rangers, people who knew the terrain and its wildlife intimately. One veteran guide said he encountered what he believed were scratches carved into the bark of a pine, far too high for any bear. They formed what looked like crude symbols, repeating triangles inside circles, and beneath them were claw marks. Not from any local animal. Rangers dismissed it as storm damage, but the guide insisted it wasn't natural, and it wasn't weather. Another ranger claimed his trail camera captured a shadowy figure crouched in a thicket, unmoving for over 6 hours. The footage was later deleted without explanation. Several nighttime campers also reported hearing strange sounds, not wolves or birds, but low murmurs, like someone speaking just out of earshot. In one case, a father and son fishing trip ended early when both men claimed they saw two glowing eyes in the trees, not reflecting like an animal's, but slowly pulsing. They packed up and left without spending the night. The father later told a local reporter, "It wasn't an animal, and it wasn't watching us. It was waiting." Word spread quickly through nearby towns, Moose, Jackson, Hole, and Kelly, and whispers of old Shoshone and Arapaho legends began to resurface. Elders spoke of a mountain guardian spirit known as Tavona, believed to punish those who ventured too far into sacred land. Others believed the area near Whistler's Cut was cursed, a place where sound didn't echo, where birds avoided nesting, and where people, once lost, were never truly gone, just changed. The official stance from the park remained neutral, but the growing unease among rangers told another story. Something was not right in Grand Teton. It was a cold April morning, nearly 10 months after Logan vanished, when something strange arrived in the mail. Logan's college roommate, Ethan Rowe, found a small, unmarked envelope tucked into the bottom of his apartment mailbox. There was no stamp, no return address, and no postmark, just his name, written in shaky, capital letters. Inside, he found something that sent a chill down his spine. A single sheet of weathered folded paper, a hand-drawn topographical map of Grand Teton. There were jagged ink lines marking elevation, landmarks, and trails, but in the middle of a no-man's land canyon west of Whistler's Cut, someone had drawn a blood-red X. Ethan froze. He recognized the handwriting immediately. It was Logan's. There was no doubt in his mind, the way he looped the heavy pressure on the lowercase ds. It was exactly how Logan had written his class notes and field sketches. The paper smelled faintly of ash and pine. Confused and disturbed, Ethan reported it to local authorities, who sent it to the park rangers. For days, experts examined the envelope and paper for fingerprints, DNA, or trace materials. They found nothing. No prints, no saliva on the envelope seal, no microscopic debris to place it anywhere. It was as if it had appeared from nowhere. Even more disturbing, the route drawn on the map wasn't logical. Logan had marked a winding, inefficient path, one that seemed to avoid flat terrain and instead deliberately skirted dangerous cliff ledges and avalanche zones. Why? And why end at a spot that didn't exist on any official park map? No trail led there. No climber had recorded a route through it. It was simply listed on older ranger charts as Zone 1 to be an unstable, off-limits section of cliffside where nesting eagles and rockfalls made travel impossible. In fact, the area had been closed for over 5 years. But still, there was that red X. Some rangers dismissed it as a hoax. But Ranger Caleb Morris wasn't so sure. He had led the original search team, and this map disturbed him more than he let on. He recognized part of the route because he had walked some of it himself during the initial search. There had been something about that area. A strange silence, a stillness in the trees. One part of the map, just before the X, had a tiny drawing, what looked like a bird's nest surrounded by 4 dots. Caleb didn't know what it meant, but something told him it wasn't just decorative. "It's a warning," he muttered, under his breath, though he couldn't explain why. Ethan was adamant that Logan couldn't have sent the map, at least not from anywhere reachable. His phone had been off for months, his bank accounts untouched. And then there was the envelope itself. It had a small, nearly invisible tear along the bottom, and wedged in the crease was a single, charred pine needle, blackened at the tip. No one could explain how it got there, or why the ink on the map seemed smudged only in one area, right over the red X, as if Logan had hesitated. As summer approached, Caleb made a decision. He told no one about he would follow the map, alone, because something was calling him back to that cliffside, and he needed to know if Logan had somehow survived, or if something far stranger had occurred. Ranger Caleb Morris waited for a clear weather window before setting off alone, carrying only essentials: rope, satellite tracker, 2 radios, and a high-powered monocular. The route outlined on Logan's mysterious map wasn't a trail, it was a winding, brutal climb up steep rock faces and along razor-thin ledges. Several parts were so treacherous he had 2 free-climb sections with sheer drops on either side. And yet, every landmark from the map appeared exactly as drawn: a boulder shaped like a skull, a broken pine clinging to the cliff, a jagged rock outcrop with a crack down the middle. Someone, Logan or otherwise, had been here before. The deeper he went, the quieter everything became. Even the birds had stopped calling. Near sunset on the second day, Caleb reached a plateau just below the red X's location. That's when he saw it perched on a thick branch of a twisted dead tree clinging to the cliffside, a massive eagle's nest. Easily 6 feet wide. It sat in perfect stillness, its outer edges laced with bones, rope fibers, and what looked like torn scraps of synthetic fabric. Caleb used his monocular to examine the structure, and his heart froze. Something metallic was glinting inside. But there was no sign of eagles, no movement. Just silence and the wind. Against his better judgment, Caleb anchored a rope and began the precarious climb upward, branch by branch, moving closer to the eerie cradle of feathers and death. When he reached the edge of the nest, Caleb paused. The interior was layered with years of debris, small bones, feathers, twigs, dry moss. But wedged near the center, half buried beneath a swirl of black feathers, was a shattered GoPro camera. Next to it, water-damaged and torn, was a piece of notebook paper, curled and stained in places with something that looked suspiciously like old, dried blood. The handwriting was nearly illegible, but it was familiar. It was Logan's. Caleb gently retrieved both items and packed them away, but not before reading the one sentence still visible on the page. There in the stone. "They don't fly, they wait." Before leaving, Caleb took one last scan of the nest. That's when he noticed something odd. The bottom layer of the nest was packed with more than just sticks. Hidden beneath it, nearly camouflaged, was a clump of bright orange fabric, the same color as Logan's jacket. But as he reached for it, the entire branch creaked violently, forcing him to retreat. He clipped back to the rope and descended, in haste, his heart pounding not just from adrenaline, but from something deeper, an instinctive fear. Something had been watching him. He was sure of it, and whatever had happened to Logan, it hadn't ended with a simple fall or animal attack. That night, camped just below the ledge, Caleb couldn't sleep. His radio, which had been working fine all day, began picking up static just after 2:17 a.m. The same time Logan's final GPS ping had occurred 11 months earlier. The static wasn't random, though Caleb swore he could hear faint breathing, rhythmic and slow, beneath the white noise. No voices, no words, just something alive. He turned off the radio. But the silence that followed was somehow worse. He now had physical proof: the GoPro, the note, the jacket. And yet, instead of relief, all Caleb felt was a deep, rising dread because whatever had lured Logan here might not have let him go. Back at Ranger headquarters, Caleb handed over the damaged GoPro and the torn notebook page to the forensic team. The footage on the memory card was mostly corrupted, likely from exposure, moisture, or impact. Most files wouldn't open at all, and those that did were fragmented and filled with digital noise. But one clip stood out. It was short only, 11 seconds, and the image was grainy, distorted by glitching pixels and overexposed edges. Yet one thing was unmistakable: Logan's face, bruised, filthy, and staring directly into the lens with terror in his eyes. His lips moved quickly, whispering something, before he turned the camera and crawled toward what appeared to be the base of a tree. Then, static technicians enhanced the audio frame by frame. Eventually, one whisper emerged clearly enough to make out. Logan's voice was weak, raspy, but deliberate. "They're watching. They're under the stone. Don't look down." The words chilled everyone who heard them. It wasn't the message itself that disturbed the team, it was the calculated fear in his voice. Not panic, not confusion, fear born from understanding. He hadn't just stumbled into danger. He'd learned something terrifying. And he was trying to pass it on. The page found in the nest was more cryptic. Only 6 words were legible across the blood-smeared surface, written in all caps as if scrawled in haste: "Eyes above, voices below, don't trust." Below that were several strange markings, faint geometric shapes drawn in the margins. Investigators couldn't agree on what they meant. One resembled a crude spiral, another looked like a cluster of vertical lines arranged like a cage. A cryptologist was brought in, but even she called the symbols nonsensical or intentionally ambiguous. Some speculated Logan had gone delirious, others weren't so sure. What did eyes above refer to? The eagles? Or something else? Watching from higher ground. Caleb, however, couldn't stop thinking about the nest itself, its size, its location, and its contents. Golden eagles are known to scavenge, yes, but they don't drag objects from miles away, especially not electronics or bloodstained notes. How had the GoPro gotten there? How had the page survived almost a year in brutal conditions and still ended up nestled among feathers and bone? And more disturbingly, why was the nest completely abandoned when he arrived? Eagles had nested there for over a decade. Now, not a single one. As if even they had fled from something, in private. Caleb began forming a theory he couldn't quite admit aloud. Not to the Rangers. Not to Logan's family. Not even to himself. What if Logan hadn't been trying to escape something physical, but something ancient? Something unseen. Something that doesn't live in the trees or on the ground, but beneath it. Something that waits, watches, draws people in. Was his final message? A warning, maybe, or a confession. But one thing was certain. Whatever happened out there, Logan had known he wasn't going to survive. And he had tried to tell the world in the only way he could. Logan's remains were never recovered, despite the discovery of his GoPro, blood-stained journal page, and even a torn piece of orange jacket fabric. There was no trace of his body. Not a bone, not a boot, not a shred of skin or hair. Caleb Morris and a second team revisited the eagles' nest site weeks later, hoping to dig deeper around the base of the cliff, but strangely, when they returned, the nest was gone, completely vanished. The twisted, dead tree that had once held it stood bare. No feathers, no bones, not even a single twig. As if someone or something had taken it apart and carried it away. After that, odd events began surfacing across the park. Multiple wildlife patrols reported abnormal behavior among the animals. Predators like wolves and cougars were seen avoiding certain valleys entirely, especially those west of Whistler's Cut. Elk herds detoured miles out of their migratory paths. Birds stopped nesting in the cliffs altogether. One biologist claimed a fox was found dead near the ridge with its eyes missing, yet with no wounds around its head. As if they were removed without trauma, she reported. Like they were never there at all. Whatever force had claimed that part of the Tetons, it had unsettled the entire ecosystem. Then came the signal anomalies. Every year on June 3rd, the exact anniversary of Logan's disappearance, park rangers monitoring the Western Range began experiencing radiostatic interference. Always around the same time between 2:17 and 2:23 a.m., the same timestamp from Logan's final GPS ping. During those 6 minutes, their radios emit a constant, low-frequency hum, followed by intermittent breathing sounds, captured on several occasions. The breathing is rhythmic, human, but when the recordings are played back, they're always slightly different, sometimes slower, sometimes louder. Once, it was accompanied by a distant whisper, unintelligible but unmistakably present. Some say it sounds like a name being spoken, Logan, though the case has never officially closed. Grand Teton authorities quietly rerouted several trails, permanently restricting access to the western canyon near Zone 1 to be no public announcement was made. On internal park maps, the region is now marked simply as unsafe geological instability, but veteran rangers know better. Most refuse to go near it, even in daylight. Caleb Morris, once a decorated search leader, took an early retirement and now lives in isolation near the Wyoming border. He's refused every interview request since except one, where he left a single quote. He didn't get lost, he got found by something that lives out there. Tourists still come. Some even ask about that missing hiker case. But locals offer warnings with tight voices and glances toward the ridge. Even now, hikers occasionally report unexplained cold spots on the trail. The feeling of being followed, and glimpses of someone watching from the cliffs, a figure in orange, motionless, just out of sight. And every so often, someone hears it, not a voice, not an animal, but the sound of stones shifting deep beneath the earth, as if something below is slowly waking, or waiting. So what really happened to Logan Fisher out there in the Grand Tetons? Was it a tragic accident, or something far stranger? A force that doesn't leave footprints, doesn't leave clues. Just a chilling reminder that some places weren't meant to be found. His camera, his note, and that map, they weren't just signs of survival. They were warnings. And now, every year on the night Logan vanished, the wind in the Tetons carries a sound, faint, like breathing, or whispering. Maybe it's just the mountain playing tricks. Or maybe he was never alone out there.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.